My name is Avil Beckford, and this is another episode of the One Problem podcast. You know, there are tons of problems in the world, but we focus on one. We don't want to overwhelm you, and this is a way for us to learn from each other. Today, my special guest is Rosemary Fernandez. She is the founder of CoachWorks, and her coaching practice, she moves people from overwhelm to abundance. I also met her through Elevate Network. Over to you, Rosemary.
Thank you, Avril. And it's such a wonderful idea of yours to bring this out to people, because I'm sure people that listen to the problem resonate with what's going on. And in the short time, we talk about a problem and then I offer some solutions. And the problem that I want to put forward today and talk about, and it's so appropriate for the current times, is everyone is in a state of overwhelm. Overwhelmed from the pandemic, overwhelmed from working on their own, overwhelmed from being at home, overwhelmed from the uncertainty of the future. And just as people think, okay, we're getting used to this, there's something else being thrown out. Just like you just said to me, now they're talking about the fourth I forget
Fourth
the
wave.
fourth wave, correct? All these waves that come into our lives. So I thought, when I work with my clients too, most of them share with me that they're in a state of overwhelm. They are working people, executives, senior executives. And why are they in overwhelm? Well, the pandemic and this whole COVID-19 brought forth a big change last year in March. And we had to make a forced upon change in our lives to work at home. Many people even lost their jobs. Those that are working from home. And the expectation is, because you're working from home, you're available 24/7. So I really want to address the working person, but it doesn't mean that the non-working person will not benefit from some of the solutions that I provide. But when we're in a state of overwhelm, it doesn't start with, oh, I'm overwhelmed. It first starts with a small little worry. And then the worry can lead to anxiety. Then the anxiety can build up into frustrations. And then before we know it, it builds up and we are in overwhelm. And overwhelm can lead us into depression. We end up having a lack of energy. We end up having forgetfulness. We end up being paralyzed because we have a fear of what's going to happen tomorrow. We got the vaccine. We don't trust the vaccine. Some people say trust the vaccine. So now we're saying the fourth wave is coming. What do we do every time there's a change? And I say that when you're in a state of overwhelm, you're living in a state of fear. And so what I do is I work with people, I connect with them soul to soul, but really some of the measures or tools that I suggest for them to use is to move out of that overwhelm, because overwhelm really is a situation that is controlled by the mind. It's our mindset. So it's our thoughts and emotions that throw us into overwhelm and fear of what's going to happen. But we have to remember that fear is not a tangible thing. We can't touch it. It has no size. It has no color. It's something that we create as a figment of our imagination. And so I tell people, oh, you're busy making movies again. And you're not going to get any awards for the movies that you are creating in your head. But the way our system, or the way our mechanisms work, that when we imagine and we create, our mind believes that it actually happens to us. So it goes into our memory, you know. So anything that we create, whether it's negative or positive, it goes into our database. And then that fear exacerbates because it's like we've already experienced one fear and we build on it. And it can have really devastating effects where, people sometimes need to go on medication to bring them out of the depression or the sadness they are experiencing from overwhelm. So I always suggest we got to nip it in the bud. When that little dot appears where you're questioning, oh my God, what's going to happen? If we build on it and build on it and build on it and build on it and build on it, it becomes a mountain. But if we were just to deal with the dot when it comes to say, I don't need this thought right now. But it's simpler said than done. What tools can we use to help us get rid of these negative thoughts, get rid of thoughts that are taking us into a fear zone? And so I ask people to think about the number one is, instead of feeling fearful, I encourage journaling, because journaling helps you to do reflective thinking. Number one is in your journaling, it's not about this happened to me today and that happened to me today. Your journaling is really more about, I call it a mind dump. You write in it whatever, all the fears you have, all the things you want to do. You might recollect things from your past. But this method of journaling, the intention of the journaling, and I'm using the word deliberately, the intention of the journaling is to create a mind dump. Dump all these negative thoughts that come into your head. And so it's not meant to be read again, and it's not meant to be shared with anybody else. It's literally meant to be a dump. So you dump it, write it on paper. You can start with 1 page. It can grow into 2 pages, but it's highly recommended by psychologists that you focus on 3 pages, and then you write it, and then you can dump it and throw it out because it's of no use to you in the future. It's a way of you to rid yourself of the fears. The next tip that I give people to move out of overwhelm is to move out of your comfort zone. The only way to conquer a little your fear is to do it, like as Nike says. So to move out of your comfort zone, look at it as a learning exercise. I'm going to learn. So from your current state of discomfort, comfort zone, you get into the learning zone, and then you get into the growth zone. When you start going into the growth zone and accept it as a learning experience, that also helps you to, because you're building new skills, new thoughts, that also helps you to step away from fear. A third tip is that when you're going through whatever it is you're going through, is to sit down and ask yourself, what is this feeling? And if you give that feeling a label, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Once you label that emotion, your mind says, okay, now, so what am I going to do about this? But if you don't label it and don't address what it is you're feeling at that moment, it's going to stay with you. You're not going to be able to release it. But once you say, I am feeling sad right now, you can grieve for 5 or 10 minutes and then let it go. If we look at some of the studies that psychologists have done on handling grief and loss, you move from denial, which we did, oh, this is not going to happen, it's not going to last very long, this pandemic, and now it's like, seems that it's never going to end. But at least we've started to think about accepting it. So when we get into acceptance, then we can start of thinking of more creative ideas of how we can live it. So even myself, someone like myself, I'm an extrovert. I really had it for living 15 months just by myself. So I've moved into an environment where I can share with somebody in safety, and be with a companion and being with friends, and we can share meals and we can discuss our day. And I'm already feeling like, wow, I'm creating an abundance mindset. So I think I'm giving you 3 tools. The 4th one is really, really powerful. And Richard Boyatzis has written tons on this topic of intention setting. He is one of the gurus of emotional intelligence, and he works with Daniel Goleman. And he talks about intention setting is when you combine your thoughts with your emotions and your heart. And when you're working with intentions and not out of goals, which is something where you're doing something that's mandatory or compelling or compulsion, when you're doing it from your desire, from your heart, it comes a lot more easily. And then you're doing it with joy. And there's no measurement tool, like I have to finish this and by the end of the month, I have to lose 5 pounds or whatever it is, or I have to accomplish something to take so many courses. But if you say, I intend to, that alone has so much power that can move you from an overwhelming mindset to that of an abundance mindset. And I think it's over to you now, Aval.
Thank you so much. Like a while back, someone defined fear as false expectations appearing real. And some of what you said, you allude to that. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
You're welcome, Aval.